Hugo Avalos Chanan. It was another beautiful, bright morning when Hugo Avalos Chanan clocked into his job as a cleaner in a meat processing plant. And as the business world was about to start, Mr. Hugo, being the cleaner, was required to go and clean the meat grinder before it could be used for a new batch. Now, you'd think the first rule of cleaning a giant machine with sharp rotating blades that literally turn huge chunks of meat into tiny ground-up pieces would be to make sure it's turned off, right? Well, Hugo missed that memo, because immediately he climbed in to get to work, the meat grinder basically pulled him in and, true to its name, did its job. Well, let's just say he became part of the product line in the worst way possible. Talk about becoming one with your work. Another worker noticed what was happening and quickly turned off the machine, but it was already too late. The merciless blades had cut through Hugo down to his bones, which were now stuck in the grinder. The machine had to be taken apart piece by piece to get out Hugo's remains for his family to bury. Ronald Sear. So it's Thanksgiving Day in 2019 when Ronald Sear decided he wasn't going to rely on the usual locks, alarms, or friendly neighborhood watch to protect his home. So he came up with a brilliant idea to set up a device that would shoot anyone who tried to break into his house. Now, setting aside the fact that this sounds like something out of the Home Alone movies, Ronald actually went through with it. For the next 2 hours, the 65-year-old went through the stress of rigging a shotgun to his door in such a way that it would go off if anyone tried to force their way in. What Ronald didn't account for was the possibility of falling victim to his own ill-conceived trap. It's like setting up a tripwire in your living room and forgetting you're the one who put it there. On that fateful day, Ronald returned home and in a tragic lapse of memory opened his own front door, which triggered the booby trap he had so carefully crafted. The shotgun went off just as he designed it to, only it wasn't an intruder on the receiving end, it was Ronald himself. He managed to call 911, but the wound was fatal and he died a few minutes later from the very security system he had created. This is probably one of the worst do-it-yourself projects ever. Lottie Belk. So you're at a picnic, just enjoying a sunny day with friends and family, when you suddenly spot a flying beach umbrella from your side eye headed directly toward your head. Well, this was exactly what happened to Lottie Belk during her 55th birthday celebration. It was July 2016, and Lottie Belk was celebrating her birthday with family and friends on the beautiful shores of Virginia Beach. While she was standing by the shore, probably taking in the ocean breeze, a strong gust of wind decided to make things interesting. Out of nowhere, a large beach umbrella, one of those big pointy ones designed to give you shade but apparently also great for impalement, took flight like it was auditioning for a scene in a horror movie. This umbrella wasn't just tumbling along the sand, it was airborne and headed straight for Lottie like it had a personal vendetta, and before she could even react, the umbrella impaled her right in the chest. And just like that, a beach umbrella went from being the perfect sunshade to a deadly weapon that killed a poor woman on her birthday. Irma Buly. If, in the unfortunate event, you come across a venomous snake and it bit you, the next thing you'd most likely do is seek medical attention before the venom kills you immediately. Well, not according to Irma Buly. So basically, the 29-year-old Indonesian singer loved performing on stage with dangerous animals because she was a daredevil, and singing alone wasn't enough entertainment. On this particular day, on April 3rd, 2016, she brought a breathing, venomous king cobra on stage with her, and guess what? She stepped on the fricking cobra tail while performing, so of course, the snake bit her. Now this is where it gets absolutely stupid, because Irma just kept on singing like nothing happened. To make matters worse, she even rejected the antidote that the snake's handler tried to give her and kept singing as if being bitten by a venomous snake is the same as a mosquito bite. The poison obviously coursed through her body, and 45 minutes later, while she was still performing, she started vomiting and having seizures, and you guessed it, she died. Well, at least she gave a once-in-a-lifetime performance to her audience. It's not every day you go to a concert to watch someone get bit by a snake and die. Gary Hoy. On July 9, 1993, Gary Hoy, a 38-year-old corporate lawyer from Toronto, worked in a high-rise building called the Toronto Dominion Centre. The building was known for its unbreakable glass, and Hoy was known for being a bit of a showman, especially when it came to proving a point. So, in a spectacular display of poor judgment, Hoy decided to demonstrate the strength of these windows to a group of visiting law students. As he had done many times before, he ran at the window full force, throwing his body against the glass. After all, what's the best way to show off the unbreakable glass? Well, by trying to break it, of course. He had clearly missed the memo about not using yourself as a crash test dummy. Well, things took a tragic turn fast because while the glass itself didn't actually break, it popped out of its frame entirely. So instead of just bouncing off like he usually did, Gary and the entire window were sent plummeting 24 floors down. If there was anything that shattered, it was his own judgment about the windows and, of course, all 206 bones in his body as he crashed. Sadly, this window of opportunity turned into a 100% fatal mistake, but at least he still proved his point. The glass was indeed unbreakable. Jennifer Strange. In 2004, Jennifer Strange, a 28-year-old mother from California, entered a radio contest called Hold Your Wee for a Wee. The contest, hosted by a local Sacramento radio station, had a simple and now infamously dangerous premise. Participants had to drink large amounts of water without going to the bathroom. The last person standing, or rather sitting, without breaking the seal, would win a Nintendo Wii, which at the time was one of the hottest gaming consoles on the market. Jennifer, like many parents at the time, was eager to win the Wii for her kids, so she took part in the contest. As the contest went on, Jennifer consumed more and more water. Unfortunately, the radio hosts and contestants didn't realize that drinking excessive amounts of water in a short period can be incredibly dangerous and lead to a condition known as water intoxication or hyponatremia. In simple terms, when you drink too much water too quickly, it dilutes the sodium in your blood. Sodium is crucial for maintaining the balance of fluids in and out of your cells. When there's not enough sodium, your cells start to swell with water. In the brain, this swelling can be fatal, as the skull prevents the brain from expanding. After the contest, Jennifer started to experience severe headaches, nausea, and disorientation, classic signs of hyponatremia. Tragically, just hours after returning home, she passed away. A classic case of too much of everything being bad. The craziest part about all this is that she didn't even win the challenge. Basil Brown. So, every healthy eating, healthy living advocate is always trying out new healthy smoothies or meal plans to improve their general well-being. Eating fruits, vegetables, and drinking a ton of water is, after all, the secret to a healthy life. Well, unfortunately for Basil Brown, this wasn't the case. You see, this man was obsessed with being healthy and was determined to boost his wellness by any means necessary. And so, of course, he started eating fruits. Not just any fruit, though. He was mainly eating carrots. He would eat them, turn them into smoothies, and drink them. This guy drank at least 1 full gallon of carrot juice daily. Now, even though drinking carrot juice gives your body nutrients and vitamin A, which is great for your eyes, immune system, and skin, taking 4 liters of carrot juice daily was definitely not a good idea. It was a very fatal idea. The excessive consumption of carrot juice basically overloaded his body with vitamin A, which became toxic. It's like getting alcohol poisoning, but this time it's vitamin A poisoning. Soon his skin started turning yellow and he developed severe liver damage within 10 days of his carrot juice obsession. He died soon after, which goes to prove the fact that, again, too much of everything is actually really bad. Unfortunately, Basil learned this the hard way. If you want to find out more stories like this, then you should join our Discord server today. Michael Anderson Godwin. Can you imagine escaping execution by electrocution only to end up still dying in the most stupid way possible? Well, this is precisely what happened to Michael Anderson Godwin, a convicted criminal who had been sentenced to death for murder in South Carolina. Initially, he was supposed to be executed in the electric chair. However, after some legal wrangling, his sentence was reduced to life in prison. So, in a sense, he managed to avoid the electric chair, something which most people would consider incredibly fortunate. Well, unfortunately for Michael, fate had other plans. One day in 1989, while serving his life sentence, Godwin was in his prison cell, likely going about his day like any other. He was sitting on a metal toilet while trying to fix his TV set. Godwin bit into a wire connected to his television set while still seated on the metal toilet for reasons that can only be described as tragically unlucky. Now, if you know anything about electricity, you'll know that metal conducts it quite well. The combination of the metal toilet and the exposed wire created a perfect circuit, and Godwin was electrocuted on the spot. The irony? He died from electrocution on a chair, the very fate he had managed to escape in the courtroom. Gary Anderson. If you visit any construction site, you will know that the #1 rule is always to wear a safety helmet. It is a rule that everyone is supposed to follow, most especially the construction workers. However, this rule was just a mere suggestion for Gary Anderson because he never wore his safety helmet. Well, in November 2014, the 58-year-old construction worker was delivering drywall to a construction site in Jersey City, and, as usual, he didn't have his safety helmet on. So, while he was deeply engrossed in his work, another worker on the 50th floor mistakenly dropped their 1-pound measuring tape, which fell nearly 500 feet at 140 meters per hour before striking Gary Anderson's head. Talk about hitting the mark. He immediately collapsed to the ground and was rushed to the Jersey City Medical Center, where he suffered from cardiac arrest and died 2 hours later. Who would have thought that a measuring tape could become a deadly weapon? Well, definitely not Anderson. Carl Berry. Picture this. It's a sunny day in April 2013, and Carl Berry, a hockey player, is practicing with other teammates on the field when he sees a snake slithering nearby. Now, the normal response to seeing a snake is to slowly back away and try to contact animal services or an expert, right? Well, not according to Carl, who walked directly to the snake and picked it up without fear. He planned to actually throw the snake out of the field so it wouldn't bother their practice. But, unfortunately for him, he had just picked up a king brown, which is literally one of the most venomous reptiles in the world. Needless to say, the snake bit him and Carl flung it away. At least he still achieved what he initially wanted to do. Now, you'd expect that Carl would alert others that he's been bitten by a snake or try to seek medical attention, right? Well, that's wrong, because the guy just continued with practice like nothing happened. Sadly, after he'd run for about 2 kilometers, he started feeling very dizzy, tired, and nauseous, and before you knew it, he collapsed. When first responders arrived, Carl was pronounced dead on the scene. Sulu Farmers. The year is 2017, and 5 hardworking farmers in Sulawesi, Indonesia are going about their day tending to their crops and doing the usual farm work. Now, on the farms, they have this massive wooden barn for storing their corn, and the barn is also built with a huge empty space underneath where they can eat and rest occasionally. One day while working, it started to rain heavily, so these guys ran to take cover underneath the barn, but in a twist of events that could only be called a tragedy, the wooden barn started to sway violently. This caused a mountain of corn to come crashing down on these guys. We're talking about the weight of 3 tons of corn. It's like getting buried under a runaway semi-truck made entirely of corn kernels. They remained there for several hours, and the weight eventually started to cut off their oxygen supply. Sadly, before the other farmers around noticed the disaster, the lack of oxygen and heavy weight on top of them had already killed them. Imagine going to do such hard work morning and night only to end up getting killed by what should have been their reward. Edward Archbold. If you were to buy a burger from a food truck and discover a cockroach in it as you were about to eat it, you'd be furious and throw the whole thing away. But for someone like Edward Archbold, that was a very delicious appetizer. You see, this guy has a thing for eating bugs, and he literally entered a roach eating contest to see who could eat the most live roaches. Now, just like in every contest, there is always a prize for the winner, and you wouldn't believe that the prize for this already fucked up contest was a python. Yeah, eat live cockroaches and win a snake. So, as the contest started, Edward went all in. He wasn't just nibbling on the roaches, he was shoveling them into his mouth like he was at an all-you-can-eat buffet, and he was winning. Edward didn't know that cockroaches aren't exactly smooth going down, so in his bug-eating frenzy, he didn't seem to consider that his throat might not be as thrilled about the menu as he was. Well, the cockroach diet clogged his airway and he started choking. Sadly, what was supposed to be a glorious moment of triumph quickly turned into a fight for air, and sadly, the bugs won. Edward's prize-winning strategy backfired in the worst possible way, and he suffocated from what can only be described as the world's most bizarre snack. Well, at least he didn't get bitten by a python. Lee Sims. As a child, when you and your mom or dad go to the park and you want to ride the swing, they'd swing you for only a few minutes before getting tired and asking you to, play on something else. And as fun as riding a swing is, it was unfortunately the worst day of 3-year-old Lee Sims' life, and quite literally the end of it. In 2015, Ramesha Sims took her son Lee Sims for a spin in a park in Maryland. The boy wanted to ride the swing, so she started swinging him gently for a few minutes, and then it turned into hours, and those hours turned into days. This lady kept pushing her child on the swing for a total of 40 hours, never taking a break. It was almost like she was hypnotized and stuck somewhere else. When someone finally noticed what was actually happening and called the police, the poor boy was already unconscious because of dehydration and hypothermia. Lee Sims was dead before he even got to the hospital, and his mother, well, it turns out she was mentally unwell and didn't even know where she was or what she'd done.